So in yesterday's board gaming podcast, I was kicking around some acquisition ideas with regard to Dark Souls. And it brought up an interesting point. It brought up an interesting point that I'm going to push out into the comments here for you guys. Board gaming is interesting because even games that are very, very popular, there might be 1, 2, or 3 or more printings. Perfect example, new example would be Gloomhaven, right? The first edition was insane. Second edition got printed. We might be on the third edition now, but with the exception of very, very, very few games, stuff goes out of print. And once the core goes out of print, that signals a dump of all the expansions. And on top of that, no new content is going to be developed. So when cores go out of print fast, it's like this vortex, and they take everything down with you. So how does this play into, first, as a completionist? I am a completionist. This is a major problem because if I find a board game that I like, that works with my player personality, I want to have the core. I want to get all the expansions, the big expansions, the small expansions, the medium expansions. I want to just bling out everything that I can. We'll do acrylic tokens. We'll get in there. If there's some exclusives or promo stuff, I want to grab those. If there's fan content, I want to professionally print it out and bind it. It's a problem. It's a problem. I'm doing my best to kind of pull myself in, but this leads into the fact that if you find a game that you like, even if it has a massive amount of content, do you need to start acquiring some of those expansions, some of that extra content pretty quick? Pretty quick as in over the next year and a half. You know, the life cycle of those expansions are tied to the core game. Do you need to pick those up even if you haven't played them yet, even if you haven't faced them yet, just to kind of literally have it? This now pushes us out to secondary markets, and I feel like there's some unique pressure here on the board gaming secondary market. And I'm not talking about like the usual crazy stuff like Runebound Midnight for $1,000, just stuff that is totally out there. Meaning, if you were to legitimately look for board games out of print, I think they're harder to find, simply because of the consumable nature of board games. So follow this train of thought compared to other hobbies that are out there. Let's look at something like, first game that comes to mind, actually this is a great example, Zombicide Invader. I'm working my way through Invader, having a blast. We have lots and lots of miniature components. They're going to last no problem. There's going to be no wear and tear on them. At worst, one will get stepped on or something like that. But the cardboard components, the card stock, you can sleeve the cards, you can take care of the boxes, you can take care of the tiles, but by the very nature of how they're printed and the very nature of taking them out, putting them in, taking them out, putting them in, playing with them, even if you take good care, there is wear and tear. So that makes finding a used board game in good condition a lot more challenging on there. Being a miniature wargamer from that perspective, you have your miniatures, whether they're Warhammer 40,000, Battletech, historicals. You paint them up, you battle, you have a lot of fun. But even with that, actual miniatures, whether they're plastic or metal, they chip, you lose part of the base, some of the flock rubs off, maybe you want to update some weapons. So even with something gaming as robust as miniatures, they require upkeep on there. So this then leads to the other question. If you think, well, I'll get the core now and I'll get some expansions, if you don't grab them and then they go out of print and then they become very, very hard to find, are you going to be able to find them in the condition that you need? And of course, that window for out of print really, really depends on the company. I feel like it really depends on the game itself. Examples would be like Fantasy Flight. They regularly put out expansions for the games that they support, usually a small box and a big box, a small box, a big box. When those expansions dry up, or when you start seeing the core go on sale, for pre-holiday shopping and things like that, that signals maybe the life cycle starting to wear down. And depending on the title, maybe you'll get a second edition. Maybe you won't get another edition on there. So that kind of signals, in my mind, maybe the time to start acquisition and exploring it.